He was raised as Egyptian royalty inside the palace of the very man who ordered his death. He committed murder, ran away into the desert, and spent 40 years as a nobody shepherd tending someone else's sheep. Then God spoke to him from a burning bush, told him to go back to the most powerful empire in the world and demand that Pharaoh release 2 million slaves. He had a speech impediment. He told God to send someone else. God said no. He went anyway. And by the time it was over, he had watched 10 plagues tear Egypt apart, led 2 million people through a sea that split open in front of them, stood on a mountain while God wrote on stone with fire, and kept an entire nation alive for 40 years in a desert that should have killed them in 40 days. He never got to finish the journey. He saw the promised land from a mountain and died before he could set foot in it. This is Moses, and the story most people think they know is only the surface of it. Moses was born into a world that was trying to kill him before he drew his first breath. The Israelites, descendants of Jacob, the same family Joseph had brought to Egypt 400 years earlier, had grown into a people so numerous that the new Pharaoh who ruled Egypt, a king who knew nothing of Joseph and felt no debt to his memory, looked at their population and saw a threat. His response was systematic: enslave them, work them to exhaustion, and when that wasn't enough to slow their growth, issue a decree that every Hebrew boy born must be thrown into the Nile. Into this world, a woman named Jochebed gave birth to a son. She hid him for 3 months. When she could no longer hide him, she did something that reads as either an act of extraordinary faith or extraordinary desperation. Possibly both. She made a basket of papyrus reeds, waterproofed it with tar and pitch, placed her infant son inside it, and set it among the reeds at the edge of the Nile. She had his older sister Miriam watch from a distance to see what would happen. What happened was Pharaoh's own daughter came to bathe at the river, heard the baby crying, opened the basket, and looked at the Hebrew infant and felt something that overrode whatever her father's decree meant to her. She decided to keep him. Miriam appeared at exactly this moment, whether by coincidence or plan the text leaves open, and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child. Pharaoh's daughter agreed. The Hebrew woman Miriam brought back was the baby's own mother, Jochebed, who was paid by Pharaoh's household to nurse her own son. When the child was old enough, he was brought to Pharaoh's daughter, and she named him Moses, drawn from the water, she said. The boy that Pharaoh's decree sent to the Nile ended up raised as a prince inside Pharaoh's own palace. The text is quiet about Moses' childhood and young adulthood inside the Egyptian palace. It gives us no scenes of his education, his relationships, his life as Egyptian royalty. What it gives us instead is the moment everything breaks. Moses goes out among his own people, his Hebrew people, though he has been raised Egyptian, and sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. He looks around, sees no one watching, and kills the Egyptian. He hides the body in the sand. The next day he goes out again and sees 2 Hebrew men fighting. He intervenes, asking why one is hitting the other. The man's response stops him. "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses is afraid. The thing he did is known. And when Pharaoh hears of it, he tries to kill Moses. Moses runs. He flees Egypt across the Sinai into the land of Midian, where he sits down by a well and watches a group of women, the daughters of a Midianite priest named Jethro, come to water their flocks. Shepherds drive the women away. Moses stands up and helps them, drives the shepherds off, and waters their flocks himself. Jethro's daughters bring him home for dinner. Moses ends up staying. He marries one of the daughters, Zipporah. He becomes a shepherd for his father-in-law. The prince of Egypt is now tending someone else's sheep in the Midianite desert. He is going to do this for 40 years. Moses is 80 years old when everything changes. He is tending Jethro's flock near the mountain of God, Mount Horeb, also called Sinai. When he sees a bush that is on fire but not being consumed, it keeps burning. He turns aside to look more closely, and God speaks to him from the bush. "Take off your sandals. You are standing on holy ground." God identifies himself, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He tells Moses he has seen the suffering of his people in Egypt. He has heard their cry. He knows their pain, and he is sending Moses back to Egypt to bring them out. Moses' response is 5 separate objections, delivered one after another. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh?" God answers, "I will be with you." "What if they ask who sent me?" God answers with a name, "I am who I am." "Tell them I am sent you." "What if they don't believe me?" God gives him 2 signs, a staff that turns into a snake and a hand that turns leprous and then heals, and tells him to use them. Then Moses says plainly, "I am slow of speech and tongue." He has a speech impediment. This is not false modesty. It is a man telling God he is the wrong person for this specific job. God's response is sharp. "Who made the human mouth? Go. I will teach you what to say." And then Moses makes the request that God does not receive well. "Please send someone else." The text says God's anger burned against Moses, but he does not send someone else. He offers Moses his brother Aaron as a spokesman. Aaron will speak. Moses will tell him what to say. And Moses goes. He is 80 years old, tending sheep in a desert, and he picks up his staff and starts walking back toward Egypt and the most powerful ruler in the world. Moses and Aaron stand before Pharaoh and deliver the message, "Let my people go so they may worship God in the wilderness." Pharaoh's response is contemptuous. "Who is the Lord that I should obey him? I don't know this God, and I will not let Israel go. He makes the Israelites work load harder. Now they must gather their own straw for brick making while producing the same quota of bricks." When the Israelite foremen complain to Moses, they blame him for making things worse. Moses brings the complaint back to God. Then the plagues begin. Water to blood. Every water source in Egypt, the Nile, the canals, the pools, the water stored in people's homes, turns to blood. Fish die. The river stinks. Pharaoh's magicians replicate the sign, and Pharaoh's heart remains hard. Frogs. Countless frogs from the Nile cover the land, entering homes, bedrooms, ovens, kneading troughs. Pharaoh calls for Moses and Aaron and asks them to pray for the frogs to leave. Moses lets Pharaoh name the time. "Tomorrow," Pharaoh says. "Tomorrow." The frogs die the next day and are piled in heaps across the land until the smell is overwhelming. Pharaoh's heart hardens again. Gnats. Dust across all of Egypt becomes gnats covering people and animals. Pharaoh's magicians try to replicate this one and cannot. They tell Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Pharaoh doesn't listen. Flies. Dense swarms of flies fill every Egyptian home and the ground of Egypt. But not in Goshen, where the Israelites live. God makes a distinction between his people and the Egyptians from this plague forward. Pharaoh negotiates, offers a partial concession, then hardens again when the flies leave. Disease on livestock. All Egyptian livestock, horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats, die from a severe disease. Israelite livestock are untouched. Pharaoh investigates, confirms, and does not change his mind. Boils. Festering boils break out on people and animals throughout Egypt. Pharaoh's magicians cannot even stand before Moses because the boils are so painful. Pharaoh's heart remains hard. Hail. The most severe hailstorm in Egypt's history destroys every person and animal left in the open fields, strips every tree, beats down every plant. Only in Goshen is there no hail. Pharaoh calls for Moses and admits he has sinned. When the hail stops, he hardens his heart again. Locusts, swarms of locusts, cover the ground until it cannot be seen, eating everything the hail left, every tree, every plant. Nothing green remains in Egypt. Pharaoh's officials beg him to let the Israelites go. He negotiates again, offers again, and when the wind shifts and carries the locusts into the Red Sea, he hardens again. Darkness. 3 days of total darkness across Egypt, a darkness that can be felt, the text says. But every Israelite has light in their homes. Pharaoh negotiates once more, offers almost everything except the livestock must stay. Moses says no. Pharaoh tells Moses, "The next time you see my face, you will die." Moses says, "You are right. I will never appear before you again." Then the 10th plague, the one that ends everything. God tells Moses to prepare Israel for departure tonight. Every household is to take a lamb without defect, slaughter it at twilight, and put its blood on the door frames of their houses. They are to roast and eat it completely with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, dressed and ready to travel. That night at midnight, God will pass through Egypt, and every firstborn, from Pharaoh's firstborn to the firstborn of the prisoner in the dungeon, to the firstborn of every animal, will die. But the blood on the door frames will be the sign. I will pass over that house. At midnight, there is not a single Egyptian household without a death. Pharaoh rises in the night, he and all his officials and all Egypt. And there is loud wailing throughout the land, the text says, because there is not a house where someone has not died. Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron in the night and tells them to go. Leave, take your livestock, go. Bless me also. The Israelites leave Egypt. 430 years after Jacob's family of 70 arrived, a nation of approximately 2 million people walks out of Egypt into the wilderness. The text says they left in such haste their bread did not have time to rise. Pharaoh changes his mind. As the Israelites camp by the sea, Pharaoh takes 600 of the best chariots in Egypt, along with all the other chariots, and pursues them. When the Israelites see the Egyptian army coming, they are terrified and cry out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to die in the desert?" Moses' response is steady. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." God tells Moses to raise his staff and stretch his hand over the sea. All night, a strong east wind blows and the sea divides, the water standing as a wall on each side, the ground between dry. The Israelites cross on dry ground in the dark. The Egyptian army pursues them into the seabed. In the morning watch, God throws the Egyptian army into confusion. Wheels fall off their chariots. They struggle to drive. The Egyptians say, "Let us get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Moses stretches his hand over the sea again. The water returns. It covers the chariots, the horsemen, the entire army that had followed Israel into the sea. Not one of them survives. The Israelites see the Egyptians lying dead on the shore and fear the Lord. They believe in Moses. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites arrive at Mount Sinai. Moses goes up the mountain. God speaks to him, "I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. If you obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured possession among all nations." The people prepare for 3 days. On the 3rd day there is thunder and lightning, a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Mount Sinai is covered in smoke because God descends on it in fire. The whole mountain trembles violently. The sound of the trumpet grows louder and louder. God speaks the 10 Commandments, the foundation of the moral code that would shape 3 of the world's major religions. Moses goes up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. God gives him the full instructions for the covenant, laws, the design of the tabernacle where God's presence would dwell among the people, the entire framework of how this nation is to live. While he is on the mountain, the people below do something that will change the rest of Moses' story. The people have been waiting for Moses for 40 days and don't know what has happened to him. They go to Aaron, Moses' own brother, left in charge, and tell him to make them gods to go before them. Aaron collects gold earrings from the people, melts them down, and fashions a golden calf. The people declare, "These are your gods who brought you out of Egypt." They celebrate. God tells Moses what is happening below the mountain and says he intends to destroy the people and make a great nation from Moses alone. Moses intercedes. He argues with God on behalf of people who are, at this exact moment, worshiping an idol at the foot of the mountain. He reminds God of the promise made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The text says God relented from the disaster he had intended. Moses comes down the mountain carrying 2 stone tablets written by God on both sides. He hears the sound of singing and sees the calf and the dancing. He throws the tablets down at the foot of the mountain, and they shatter. He burns the golden calf, grinds it to powder, scatters it on water, and makes the Israelites drink it. Then he stands at the entrance of the camp and calls out, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." The Levites rally to him. 3,000 people die that day. Moses goes back up the mountain and asks God to forgive the people. "If you don't forgive them," he says, "blot me out of your book as well." This is Moses, the man who asked God to send someone else, now offering to be destroyed alongside the people he was sent to save. God makes a new set of tablets. The covenant is renewed. What should have been an 11-day journey from Sinai to the Promised Land becomes 40 years. At Kadesh Barnea, 12 spies are sent ahead to scout Canaan. 10 of them come back with a terrifying report. The land is full of giants. The cities are fortified. We are like grasshoppers compared to them. The people weep all night. They want to go back to Egypt. They want to stone Moses and Aaron. 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, give the minority report. The land is good, and the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of the people there. The congregation prepares to stone them. God tells Moses he will destroy the entire nation and make a new one from Moses. Moses intercedes again. God forgives, but with a consequence. None of the adults who left Egypt, except Joshua and Caleb, will enter the promised land. They will wander the wilderness until that entire generation has died. 40 years, 1 year for each day the spies were in the land. And so they wander, through 40 years of desert, of complaints, of rebellion, of water and food miraculously provided, of battles fought, of a people who cannot seem to hold on to what they've seen long enough, to trust what they haven't seen yet. Moses leads them through all of it. And then Moses himself makes the mistake that costs him the finish line. The people complain again about no water. God tells Moses to take his staff and speak to the rock. Just speak to it, and water will come. Moses takes the staff, gathers the assembly, and says, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" And then he strikes the rock twice with his staff, instead of speaking to it. Water gushes out, enough for the whole community and their livestock. God tells Moses, "Because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." The water came anyway. 2 million people drank. But Moses will not cross the Jordan. Moses is 120 years old. The entire generation that left Egypt has died in the wilderness. The new generation stands on the eastern bank of the Jordan, ready to cross into the land that has been promised since Abraham. Moses gives 3 long farewell speeches recorded in Deuteronomy, a summary of everything that happened, a restatement of the law, and a final blessing over each of the 12 tribes. He is passing the leadership to Joshua. He is saying goodbye to the only calling he has ever had. Then God tells him to go up Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, across from Jericho. Moses climbs alone. God shows him the entire land, Gilead, Dan, Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, Judah, the Negev, the whole region from the Jordan Valley to the Western Sea. Everything that was promised, everything he led 2 million people toward for 40 years. And then Moses died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. He was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. God buried him in a valley in Moab, opposite Beth Peor. No one knows where his grave is to this day. The Israelites wept for 30 days. Then they followed Joshua across the Jordan. The New Testament records Moses appearing centuries later at the Transfiguration on a mountain, standing beside Elijah and talking with Jesus. The man who saw the promised land from a mountain and could not enter it, appearing in light on a mountain with the one who would call himself the fulfillment of everything Moses pointed toward. Moses is called in Deuteronomy the greatest prophet who ever lived. No one else arose in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. That's the official verdict, the summary at the end of the story. But sitting with the whole of it, what stays with you isn't the miracles. The miracles are extraordinary, but they belong to God. And Moses said so consistently throughout his life. What stays with you is the man inside the miracles, a man who killed someone and ran, who spent 40 years becoming nobody in a desert, who stood at a burning bush and told God 5 separate times that he was the wrong person for this, who was 80 years old, 80, when the most significant chapter of his life began, who argued with God on behalf of people who were actively worshiping an idol at the foot of the mountain while the argument was happening, who offered to be destroyed alongside them rather than become a great nation without them, who hit a rock in a moment of frustrated anger after decades of faithful service and was told that one act would keep him from the finish line, who climbed a mountain alone at 120 years old, looked at the land he had spent his entire second life walking toward, and died with it in view. There is no clean resolution in Moses' story. The man who parted the sea does not get to cross the river. The man who received the law does not get to live under it in the place it was given for. What he gets instead is the view from the mountain, the whole of the promise visible, the whole of the journey behind him, and the knowledge that what he carried for 40 years would arrive, even if he did not. Whatever else that is, it is enough to have been the one who carried it.